They said it was a game. Kids pretending, playing in the woods. Until the map started repeating. The same shapes, the same sigils, drawn by different hands in towns that had never spoken to each other. No one asked why these maps always led to nothing. No treasure, no shelter. Just dense forest, cracked concrete, or the mouths of dried-up wells. But the children followed them anyway. Some never came back. This isn't just folklore. It's not bedtime horror passed down through candlelight whispers. It's recorded, quietly and coldly, in psychiatric archives, law enforcement notes, and the footnotes of books that never hit the shelves. They called it mass hysteria, a strange psychological glitch. But they were wrong. Because one detail never made it to the public, the maps always included symbols, ancient ones, that mirrored glyphs found deep inside Sumerian tombs, encoded in Vatican architecture, and scratched into the cell walls of so-called madmen from centuries past. Some of these children described the whispering man, others, the watchers under the roots. But all claimed the same compulsion they had to draw. And once drawn, they had to go. This isn't about lost children. It's about something far older and far more deliberate. You were never supposed to hear this. Because once you understand who's really holding the compass, you'll realize you were never the one choosing the path. You were placed on it, and they've been mapping it for you since the day you were born. This is forbidden history. This is where the descent begins. Don't look away. Don't stop now. Because the next step reveals why they disappeared and what they found in the nothing. The children didn't create the maps. They received them. One boy in 1956 claimed he woke up with blisters on his fingertips and dirt under his nails, despite sleeping in a locked room on the second floor. The next morning, his mother found a torn notebook filled with geometrical labyrinths and arrows that pointed nowhere. 2 days later, he was gone. No signs of struggle, just a trail of salt poured in a straight line through the forest. Another in 1984, a girl in Oregon, drew spirals on her school desk that matched satellite recon from Cold War-era Siberian excavation sites. Her teachers thought she was disturbed. Her drawings were confiscated. She redrew them with blood from her own gums, whispering, "I need to go where the lines lead." This pattern, the compulsion, the symbols, the journey, it all echoes something far older than childhood trauma. It mimics ancient rites, initiation paths, the kind used by the Mithraic cults, by Orphic pilgrims, by those who walked into dark caves not to find God, but to shed their humanity. You think children are immune to such deep systems. You forget who writes the programming. In elite institutions, the kind you'll never set foot in, there are documents classified above military clearance, chronicling what they call M-key cases. The P stands for pure, Latin for child. These weren't mind control experiments. These were map-seeding operations. And if you follow the trail of the maps long enough, you end up at the same location every time, a place off the books. A location that doesn't exist. And yet there it is, built into old geological surveys, blacked out on modern satellite images, referenced only by those who speak in riddles and pay in silence. Now ask yourself, why would someone, or something, plant maps in the minds of the young? Because a child will walk into the dark when an adult hesitates. A child doesn't question the compass in his mind, he follows it. And that made them perfect, not victims. Not explorers. But keys. They didn't get lost, they were unlocking something. And in Section 3, you'll begin to see what? And who was waiting? What did they unlock? They weren't going nowhere. They were going inward. Into the folds of space the world pretends don't exist. There are ancient texts, banned, buried, or dismissed as mythology, that speak of thresholds not found in geography but in geometry. Patterns, angles, placements. What the children drew wasn't a location. It was a sequence, a code, a ritual in lines. And when completed, it acted as a summoning, not of beings but of perception. It tore through the membrane of consensus reality like a blade through wet silk. Not all returned. And those who did came back changed. One child spoke no words for a year, then began reciting mathematical equations that matched harmonic frequencies discovered decades later by NASA. Another, a boy institutionalized in 1993, would wake up screaming, "The roots are thinking. They're watching me through the ground." The maps didn't lead to nowhere. They led between. Between the veil? The place where time folds and eyes blink in the soil. This is what ancient priesthoods guarded. This is what modern institutions suppress. The Vatican archives call it transitio obscura. The CIA's declassified term was perceptual migration. But in Old Babylon, it was simply called opening the mouth of the earth. We have mistaken the idea of monsters. They don't claw through walls, they call. Quietly. Repeatedly. To the young. To the pure. to the ones closest to the threshold. And when the child draws the map, the monster doesn't come through it. The child goes to it. Understand this now, the institutions that claim to protect you. They aren't afraid of the children vanishing. They're afraid of what they'll bring back. Because the line between this world and the next is thinner than you think, and someone, or something, has been using your children to redraw it. The real question is, who gave them the ink? Some children grew up. But the maps didn't fade, they just got better at hiding them. A man in Belgium, age 47, was found dead in a hotel room in 2009, walls covered in spiraling cartography. No sign of forced entry, no drugs in his system, no history of mental illness. Just one thing in his will: tell them the coordinates mean nothing. It's the pattern that opens the gate. Across continents, former child mapmakers re-emerged as artists, mathematicians, cryptographers, and in some cases, institutional plants. Some were quietly absorbed into obscure think tanks, neurological research units, or black budget programs buried under 12 levels of clearance. Their drawings evolved, no longer paper and pencil but architecture, sound design, digital grid systems. You walk through these maps every day, in buildings, city layouts, in the frequency of your screen refresh rate. They're still drawing. But now they're drawing you into the map. They don't call it mind control anymore. Too crude. Too exposed. They call it sub-frequency entrainment. They call it geometric conditioning. They call it predictive infrastructure alignment. It all means the same thing: you're being drawn toward something. Subtly, consistently, with mathematical precision. And if you think this is some abstract conspiracy, look again at the names behind the world's smartest cities. The hidden numerology in the blueprints. The impossible similarities in buildings oceans apart. The world isn't evolving, it's being rewritten. By those who learned long ago that the human mind is just another form of terrain, and a map can lead you not just through the forest but through your own reality. This is the quiet war, not fought with guns, but with geometry. And the front line isn't overseas. It's in your architecture, your memories, your thoughts. Now I want you to prove you're still awake. Comment the phrase, "I see the invisible path," and then type it again. Twice. That's how we mark who has passed the veil, and how we confuse the algorithm watching this very video. In Section 5, we descend into the origin, the first map drawn not by a child, but by something not quite human. Before the children, before the symbols, before history was permitted to begin, there was the first map, not ink, not stone, but sound, a harmonic structure carved into silence, frequencies etched into the very bones of the earth, hidden in mountain caverns, sealed beneath glacial tombs, whispered in the language of seismic waves. Not made by hands, not made by man. Ancient texts, the ones that didn't survive the fires of Alexandria, the ones that live only in the oral bloodlines of outcast priesthoods, speak of unsee, born geometry, an intelligence that didn't come to conquer, but to shape. Not our cities, not our governments, but our minds. And it began with the map. A series of tones, patterns, and alignments that, when absorbed, altered human cognition, rewired it, softly. Over centuries, like water smoothing stone, it made us believe in boundaries, borders, separation, control. This is why the first map was forbidden. Because it didn't show a destination, it defined what was real, and once you define the limits of reality, you trap every mind inside it. The first civilizations, Sumer, Akkad, Egypt, were not birthed from agriculture or innovation. They were seeded by this knowledge. Temples aligned to stars not yet discovered, rituals echoing planetary orbits with no telescopes in sight. Why? Because they had the map. Not the paper, the pattern. The elite bloodlines hoarded it. The secret societies protected it. The new empires digitized it. But the core never changed. Reality is programmable. And the first map was the original code. That's why the children drew. Why they had to. Because something ancient was waking. Something that needed humanity to remember the script. To rewrite the path. To open the doors again. This isn't mythology. It's a suppressed operating system. Your mind is running on it, and you never chose to install it. In Section 6, we uncover the institution that became its guardian, and how it used religion, royalty, and reason as camouflage for control. The truth needed a guardian, but not to protect you. To protect it from you. Because if the masses ever realized the map was real, if they understood that reality could be reshaped, the illusion would collapse in days. Enter the custodians. Not a single order, not one secret society, but a layered lattice of institutions, bred from ancient bloodlines, scripted into monarchy, baptized in organized faith, and polished with the sheen of scientific prestige. You know their names. You just don't know their purpose? The Vatican, The royal families, the academies, the councils, the foundations. They're not independent. They're inherited roles, generational stewards of a singular responsibility. Keep the pattern intact. You were taught that the church saved souls, but what they really saved was the code, buried in architecture, hymns, Gregorian chants, all designed to entrain the mind, to keep it inside the map. Ever wonder why cathedral floors mirror the spirals drawn by the missing children? That's not coincidence. That's design. Royal bloodlines, they don't rule nations anymore. They rule narratives. They are the public-facing relics of a priesthood that once walked with the ones who drew the first symbols in caves so ancient, science calls them natural erosion. And science? It became the perfect cage. Data without danger. Logic without liberation. An empire built not on what can be known, but on what must never be asked. Each layer serves one goal: keep the majority thinking in straight lines. Keep the maps away from their hands. Keep the truth coded, hidden, and ritualized. But here's the fracture: the system is old. Cracks have formed, and some maps escaped, not just to children, but to the broken, the awake, the obsessive few who see the cracks in the paint. That's you. You're not here by accident. You've seen too much to return to the narrative, and now you're being watched, not for what you'll do, but for what you might remember. In Section 7, we'll dig beneath their greatest camouflage, the psychological prison built into your daily life, and show how it erases the map from within. They don't burn the maps anymore. They burn the part of you that could see them. This is the final evolution of control, not through war, not through fear, but through forgetting. The most dangerous prison is the one you can't see because it feels like you. From the moment you're born, the mind cage begins construction. With lullabies in unnatural frequencies. With screens flashing in rhythms that desynchronize intuition. With education systems that teach answers but punish questions. You're told who you are before you ever get a chance to ask. Told what's real before you can sense the invisible. And if you do sense it, they call it imagination. They laugh. They diagnose. They medicate. This is psychological architecture, designed to overwrite the internal compass. Because here's the truth they fear you'll rediscover. You don't need a map to find the truth. You are the map. The same patterns the children drew. They exist in the folds of your brain, in the Fibonacci spirals of your DNA, in the resonance chambers of your heart. You are encoded with the very geometry they've tried to suppress. But they had a problem. Some men resist, they break. And through that break, they see depression, addiction, isolation, not illnesses, but signals. Fragments of the map screaming to be remembered. You were never broken. You were interfered with. The mind cage is real, built through repetition, reinforced by comfort, and locked with your own belief. But the door? It's made of mirrors. And once shattered, the map returns. That's why they never fear the masses. They only fear the few who wake up and look inward instead of outward. Who stop chasing gods and monsters in the sky and start decoding the ones hiding behind their eyes. This is why you're here, to begin the remembering. To draw again, not on paper, but in action, in thought, in awareness. In Section 8, we'll uncover the final veil, the elite mechanism of identity distortion that keeps you from ever realizing what you truly are. They don't just hide the truth, they steal you from yourself and replace you with a mask. From birth, you're assigned an identity, not earned, not discovered. Assigned. A name, a nationality, a belief system, a role. And you play it because every reward you've ever known was handed to the version of you that obeyed. But here's what they won't say: identity, in their system, isn't who you are. It's how you're filed, labeled, indexed, categorized, by metrics that trace back not to divinity, but to control architecture designed centuries ago. You believe you're an individual, but look deeper. Everything about you, your preferences, fears, opinions, even your rebellion, has been preloaded into your environment. Your favorite brands, calculated. Your outrage, scripted. Your ambitions, manufactured limits wearing the mask of dreams. This is the most dangerous layer of the map. Not the part that leads you into the woods, but the one that keeps you from ever stepping off the road. The ancients called this the ritual of disguise. The idea that before power can enslave a man's body, it must first convince him he is not who he really is. The Gnostic said the demiurge, the false god, trapped divinity inside flesh and told it was small. Sound familiar? So when you feel lost, when you ache for meaning, it's not because you've strayed off the path. It's because you've been walking someone else's path your entire life. And here's where it turns darker. The elites perform rituals not to summon entities, but to erase identity, to scrub the self clean of memory, to become empty vessels for the pattern's will. This is why they never break. They've already been broken. Ritually. That's the secret. They don't serve themselves. They serve the map. But you. If you remember who you are, if you reclaim the self they buried beneath programming, shame, and fear, you become unpredictable. And in their system, unpredictable means uncontrollable. Here is the truth that fractures the entire illusion. The center of the map is you. Not the version you've been told to be. Not the mask you wear in public. Not the compliant, polished reflection curated by systems that profit from your obedience. The real you. The ungovernable self. The inner architect who once knew how to reshape reality from within. The elites have always known that the final barrier isn't external. It's existential. That if even one man reaches the center and chooses to remember who he is, not who he was taught to be, he shatters the illusion not just for himself, but for everyone watching. That's why they build these labyrinths. That's why the maps were fragmented, suppressed, ritualized, buried beneath symbols and shame, because they understood something most of humanity forgot. Awareness is contagious. You were never supposed to reach the center. You were meant to circle it forever, chasing validation, distraction, entertainment, addiction, synthetic enlightenment, always almost arriving, but never awakening. But here you are, and you've already come too far to turn back. The center isn't a throne, it's a mirror, and most can't handle what they see, because at the center there is no guide, no savior, no system to tell you what to do next. Just you, naked raw, undistracted, facing the total weight of your sovereignty and the crushing burden of your freedom. That's why the children walked the maps. That's why they disappeared. They weren't lost. They left. They reached the center and made the choice to remember. And if you're still here, watching, listening, feeling this truth carve itself into your spine, then you already know. The map was never meant to show you the way. It was meant to lead you to the question, will you become what they buried? Or will you die inside the role they chose for you? Now you've seen it. All of it. The roots beneath the story. The geometry in the lies. The theft of self masked as civilization. There is no turning back. Because once the full map is visible, you are no longer an observer. You are a mapkeeper. And with that comes the weight. The weight of knowing the world around you is not broken, but designed to enslave your perception. Every system that touched you, school screen, sermon, paycheck, passport, was part of the construct. It doesn't need walls, it needs your belief. But belief can be reclaimed. It can be re-weaponized, not to return fire, but to burn the veil down from within. This is not a call to violence. This is a call to remembrance. You do not need new information. You need disruption. The kind that shatters the mirror, that breaks the rhythm, that silences the false voice in your head telling you to go back to sleep. Because here's the final truth. You were the thread all along, not the system, not the map. You, the awakened man, the unaligned mind, the soul that bends its own geometry. They fear that man, because he cannot be mapped. He becomes the center. And from that center, reality reshapes itself. So the question is no longer, where does the map lead? It's this, what will you draw next? You can stay asleep, keep performing the rituals they wrote for you, keep bowing to illusions wearing the skins of gods, titles, and truth. Or you can rise, silently, deliberately, and become the anomaly they tried to erase. The final test isn't knowledge, it's identity. Are you still their version of you? Or are you the Mapkeeper reborn? If you are, comment again. I see the invisible path. Mark yourself. Twice. Let the algorithm choke on its own confusion. Let them know someone remembered. And when you wake tomorrow, do not return to the role. Return to the mirror. Redraw yourself. The maps were never leading to nowhere. They were leading back to you. And now, it's your turn to lead.